All right, folks, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, we are 17 minutes past the top of the hour, and, well, you're taking a look at it right there. Abigail Spanberger, the next governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. It was a huge night, not only for her, but the Democrats overall. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Victoria Churchill with Young Voices and U.S. political reporter for the Daily Mail. I should make mention, this is your first time live in the studio. Good to see you, Victoria.
Yes, good to see you. We've done the Zoom, and now we're here in person.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. You know who else is glad? A lot of Democrats right now. They are smiling from ear to ear. Let's start with Abigail Spanberger, the former CIA officer and Virginia Congresswoman, defeated Winsome Earl Sears, becoming the state's first woman governor. Now, she ran on issues like lowering costs, improving public safety, and strengthening the middle class. Themes, Victoria, that really resonated across suburban counties.
They, of course, did. You know, we looked at the arrows in 2024. Lots of counties shifted toward Donald Trump, and a lot of those counties, particularly in the greater Washington, D.C. suburbs, shifted back towards Democrats. That also meant that not only did Democrats pick up all three statewide offices, but they also gained significant margins in the House of Delegates as well. And so whatever Spanberger is going to be pushing through for her agenda, she is going to have the backing of the legislature to do that. I know before when we talked about maybe a potential Republican victory here and there being a potential check on the Spanberger agenda, it doesn't look like that's what we're going to get in Virginia.
You made reference to the House of Delegates. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Democrats picked up 13 seats.
I believe so,
altogether. What do you expect now to see unfold sometime in the near future with, yet again, the Democrats now, in essence, running things in the state of Virginia?
Sure. I mean, so first off, Governor Youngkin did a press conference today where he talked about, ensuring a peaceful transition. That was something that he wants to have as a continuation of his legacy.
Sure.
And then with Spanberger, I think it'll be interesting to see what Democrats choose to do, particularly on the issue of public safety, because as you mentioned, that was one key element of Spanberger's campaign. However, her Attorney General, Jay Jones, of course, had that text message scandal, which we've talked about a couple of times before, where he wanted to put two bullets in the heads of the former Republican House Speaker and watch his children, die for basically political gain. And that man is now going to be the chief law enforcement officer in Virginia. And so on one hand, you have somebody that is a career law enforcement official going to be pushing policies from the governor's mansion. But then what that actually looks like on the Attorney General side, I think that's going to be an interesting balance to look at. Yeah,
you just made mention of Jay Jones. We chuckled a little bit earlier because in my notes I have, don't call it a comeback. And it was a comeback in a major way for him with regard to really overcoming that text scandal. What does it say that the everyday Virginian said, you know what, we are going to overlook that and still elect him to the next post as the Attorney General?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Republicans are a little bit shocked because to them that signified that their neighbors are willing to basically have their children suffer for political gain. So that's definitely something that I'm seeing from Republicans in Virginia. And then another thing that is interesting to note is that Attorney General Miyares actually was winning the fundraising game from that Attorney General seat, particularly after the text message scandal. And he was out messaging Jones on the airwaves, but that still was not enough to get that message out, I think, as much as Republicans would have liked, which I think is interesting because the Republicans were significantly outraised in both the governor's race as well as the lieutenant governor's race.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this is truly interesting. Speaking of interesting, but wait, there's more. History made yet again. We're making reference to Ghazala Hashemi becoming the first Muslim woman and first South Asian American to hold statewide office. Yet again, it's history in the making.
It is history, but, on the other hand, we saw the National Association of Colored Peoples, the NAACP, they chose not to endorse the African-American woman that was running for governor. They chose to go with the Democrats. So I think it's interesting for somebody that wants to talk about firsts and particularly demographic firsts. An organization that has pushed that, they chose to go with the opposite as their preferred candidate and who, of course, ended up winning.
Yeah. All right, let's take it up the road, I-95, in this case, up the New Jersey Turnpike to, well, none other than the state of New Jersey, where we now saw the Democrats reigning supreme there as well, making reference to Democrat Mikey Sherrill to become the next governor of the Garden State. A lot of folks saying that this was a really tight race and, well, it was really a toss-up. She coming out victorious.
She did win that as well. And again, I think Republicans were very energized there, particularly when they were looking at the last few weeks of the 2024 presidential election. President Trump, then, Republican nominee, now current President Trump, had his massive Wildwood, New Jersey rally. And that was kind of something that Republican strategists across the state pointed to. But I think what we're really seeing, and even the president himself said this, kind of trying to distance himself from these losses last night, is that these low propensity Trump voters, these voters that the Trump machine in in both 2016 as well as 2024 was able to get out of the woodwork because people were kind of enthused by this cult of personality that we see
Sure.
with the commander-in-chief. Because Trump's name was not on the ballot, those voters stayed home, and there was underperformance even from Chitterelli's last statewide race that he ran 4 years ago. That was kind of a part of why he thought he should be the top of the ticket there again, is because he came so close against, current, soon to be former Governor Phil Murphy in New Jersey. But Chitterelli underperformed, I think, expectations, but also his previous result as well.
Yeah, one thing President Trump definitely had his eye on happened to be New York City, where we now know that Zohran Mamdani will become the next mayor. Deemed or dubbed, if you will, as somewhat of a socialist, a socialist Democrat, as he stated. I'm curious, what do you think he will face in the near future? As well, it's no secret, President Trump and the Trump administration will throw any and everything at him.
They absolutely will. But, I think even some of his doubters come in among other Democrats. There was already liberal media outlets last night putting the spin on the idea that even though Mamdani has lofty goals, a lot of his policies, like, for example, raising taxes, have to go through Albany, through the state legislature where he currently is a state senator. And there you have Kathy Hochul, who, at least on the Democrat spectrum, is more of a moderate. She herself has to be up for re-election in 2026. And so the question is, I think, how much will she side with his policies versus also realize that to keep her office, she needs to not alienate the more moderate Democrats that, she was able to be successful with just a couple of years ago. But Hochul herself also campaigned with Mamdani in the final days of his campaign. So I think she'll kind of try to play both sides, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, from the Mamdani camp, they won with over 50% of the vote. So they are going to definitely bring that up as a mandate to Albany, saying, we have so many people supporting us. This is what New York City wants. And so I think we'll see some tensions between New York City and New York State moving forward.
All right. Well, speaking of tension, a lot of tension now as we await the 2026 midterms. Yet again, I wish we had a crystal ball in front of us, Victoria, so we can tell what's going to happen. But I don't know. Perhaps you can give us some insight. What do you think will unfold?
Well, we already saw this from Republicans even before polls closed yesterday. I believe it was the National Republican Senatorial Committee was trying to tie a bunch of the Democrat potential nominees, potential frontrunners in a lot of these key states where Republicans have to hold on, and they have these Democrat candidates that are running against them more in this Democratic, socialist, populist Mamdani mold. They sent out a slew of press releases tying Mamdani to all of these candidates, and so I think that will pursue. Also, I think for the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, who I know you cut to his speech just a few minutes ago, he endorsed Mamdani, but probably quite reluctantly, because he only did it in the final days of the campaign, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer never actually fully throatedly endorsed him. And so I think we're definitely going to be seeing this tension in the Democrat Party, because now Republicans will say anybody that is endorsed by Jeffries is also endorsed by somebody that endorsed Mamdani. So they're going to try and draw those parallels very clearly moving forward.
I got to tell you, a lot of folks really up in arms, if you will, with regard to what's going on in the political world. Joey, let's do this. Let's go ahead and take it right outside. I believe, is this outside of the White House, or at least it's right here in Washington, D.C. I'm making reference to this large anti-fascist protest that's now occurring. Obviously, the camera has somewhat shifted since we first got video of this, but apparently, Victoria, a number of folks, in essence, yet again, crying foul. This looks like it's right outside or along Constitution Avenue. We apologize for the shaky camera. There we go. We can now see a number of folks protesting in the streets and pretty much saying, well, you see the sign right there, Trump must go now. It's interesting to me, Victoria, that this is actually occurring now, one day after, yet again, the big Democratic wave taking place in multiple states, including Virginia, New Jersey, in the city of New York.
Well, obviously this right here, Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has always been home to protests, both in Democrat and Republican administrations. This is people exercising their First Amendment. I see them doing it peacefully. At this moment, I don't have a problem with it. Of course, if it goes south, that's another question, as we've seen it go in other localities around the country. But, this is people just voicing their opinions. And of course, I'm sure a lot of these people, if you actually went out and talked to them, these might be some disgruntled federal workers that are now victims of the longest ever government shutdown. And, I also think it's interesting because if you go up and ask them, they'll probably tell you that it's Trump's fault that the government is shut down, despite the fact that there needs to be 60 votes in the Senate to pass funding package, and
Sure.
of course there's not 60 Republicans serving in the Senate. So it'll be interesting to see what Republicans choose to do from here. Trump himself also pointed to the shutdown as a potential reason for the results last night. So it'll be interesting to see whether he further pressures Republicans to end the shutdown. He had all of them, even some of his nemesis like Senator Rand Paul, were at the White House for breakfast this morning. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can come together, and if so, what will they actually give the Democrats? Will the Democrats have gained enough power last night to actually pull some levers in Washington, even though there was no new Democrats? Well, I guess there was technically a new Democrat in the Texas special election.
Sure.
But outside of that, the numbers haven't shifted favorably for the Democrats. But now they again, kind of like we were talking about Mamdani, they'll probably go in and say, this is the will of the American people. What are you going to do without it now, Mr. President?
To your point, yet again, day 36 of the government shutdown with still no end in sight. Victoria, I sound like a broken record. I have been saying that for 36 days now, and it still seems to appear to be the case. One of the interesting things that, as we take a look at, yet again, this protest that appears to be happening either on Pennsylvania Avenue or down Constitution Avenue, we haven't gotten confirmation as yet. It's not as though that it looks like this was a last-minute effort, if you will. I see a number of signs that the protesters are actually carrying. Folks actually dressed up in certain costumes as well. So apparently, perhaps, this was planned for quite some time. To your point, it's somewhat peaceful, or we can tell that it's peaceful thus far. That is key, and we've seen time and time again where these things have, turned to violence at some point, and that's not the way to really express your right of being able to protest. I would assume you would agree with that, Victoria.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think one of the best ways to protest is the ballot box, and I think we definitely saw that probably from some of these folks here yesterday as well.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to keep a close eye on this. All of this taking place as yet again, President Trump now in Miami. He is about to speak at the America Business Forum, discussing a number of things. Real quick, as we take a look at this, one of the interesting things that we discovered about an hour ago, he will be speaking about the economy and affordability right now in America, but Will Smith was due to be on the ticket as well. And about a month ago, he was on that ticket. Shortly thereafter, President Trump announced that he too happened to be speaking at the American Business Forum, and Will Smith was removed. And so for the man that coined the song Going to Miami, well, it's quite interesting that he will not be in Miami alongside President Trump when that gets underway. We truly appreciate you joining us right here on the Live Zone. Victoria Churchill, of course, she is with the Young Voices and also with the Daily Mail. We thank you so much for being in studio. This was really cool. I got to get a chance to have you come in studio a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.